Welcome to the MOOCs on Media Law and Ethics. Today we are going to discuss about CBFC, yes, Central Board of Film Certification. It is one of the most interesting topic in media law and ethics. In this model, we will be covering the historical background of censor board, why we need censor for a film, and the act itself. Okay, before getting into the model, let's separate the topic into two, like pre-independence and post-independence. Do you know when the film censorship came into existence? Do you know how it came to existence? Yes, it is because of fire. In 1897, at Bazar Doula charity event in Paris, a fire broke out. The fire broke out because of the cinematograph apparatus installed at the venue accidentally got fire and killed 126 people who have attended the event. Over a decade, many fire accidents have happened around the world. As a result of these accidents, the world's first cinematograph legislation was passed in Britain in 1909. The legislation was laid to improve safety standards by controlling the issue of cinema licenses. This kind of license control led to other kinds of control later. The 1909 Act by British made licenses necessary for public screenings. Local authorities used this to regulate not only for the safety standards but also the contents of the film itself. Later, British Board of Film Censor was formed in 1912. Let's discuss about pre-independence. Meanwhile, in India, the motion picture had a great impact. Indians started watching films and also making their own. In 1917, a bill introduced in the Imperial Legislative Council noted the rapid growth in the popularity of cinematograph and increasing number of such exhibitions in India. It recommended the creation of law that would ensure both safety and the protection of the public from indecent or otherwise objectionable representations. The British approved the Cinematograph Act in 1918. This act came into effect from 1st August 1920. It inaugurated the concept of film censorship in India. Thus, the Cinematograph Act of 1918 was introduced, and this is how the film censorship came to existence in India. The 1918 Act gave the district magistrate in Rangoon the power to issue licenses to exhibitors and the government to appoint inspectors to examine and certify films such as suitable for public exhibition. The 1918 Act dealt with two issues: the licensing of cinema houses, the certifications of films according to its suitability for public exhibition. A separate authority was set up. Without the authority's permission, no film could be exhibited. A clearer set of rules was set in 1920 when censor boards were set up in Bombay, Madras, Calcutta and Rangoon, and a fifth was established in Lahore in 1927. These autonomous regional censor boards adopted the rules from British censors 1917, which was compiled by T.P. O'Connor. Bombay Board of Film Censors then proceeded to lay out 43 objectionable subjects. Some of the key rules are rule number 21 and 22, which says scenes holding up the king's uniform to contempt or ridicule, and subjects dealing with India in which British or Indian officers are seen in odious light. Filmmakers were also advised to steer clear of gruesome murders and strangulation scenes, unnecessary exhibition of feminine underclothing, and indecorous dancing. In 1920 was the start of non-cooperation movement, and jails all over the subcontinent were full. With one eye on the freedom movement, another on the bombardment of Axis propaganda, the British government in India ordered a cinematic fact-finding mission. The Indian Cinematograph Committee ICC of 1927-28, chaired by a former Madras High Court Judge T. Rangacharya, was the first comprehensive inquiry into movie viewing, censoring and exhibiting habits in the country, and an acknowledgement by the British of cinema's increasing popularity in India. In 1921, there were an estimated 148 movie halls in India. By 1927, this number had doubled. In its report, the committee said the crowds which flocked to witness a popular Indian film are really remarkable. Despite the long list of objectionable subjects, Indian cinema wasn't exactly prurient in the 1920s and the 30s. The British had bigger problems than a few on-screen kisses. The main preoccupation of the British censor was not the passionate love scenes then common in Indian cinema, but the threat of communal discord and the expression of nationalistic movements. The first film to be banned in India is Bhakta Vitur in 1921. The protagonist of Bhaktavidur was having costume with Gandhi cap, khadi cloths and spinning wheel. These costumes symbolize the character as Gandhi. In fact, Gandhi was the hidden subject of the film. A Tamil film, Thyaga Bhoomi, in 1939 met the same fate. It is mentioned that the Tamil film had documentary inserts of the leader, and that protagonist Sambu Sastri is portrayed as the Gandhi of Tamil Nadu, sitting on a dais spinning with a chakra. During the mid-30s, many countries have brought censorship acts for films. Particularly, German and Italian were stringent in film censors. Let's look at the censors of German and Italy. Censorship in German. Goebbels was an ex-journalist who joined the Nazi Party in 1924. Hitler appointed him as a Reich Minister of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda. His role was to centralize Nazi control over all aspects of German cultural and intellectual life. From 1934, directors had to send the plot of every new film to Goebbels for approval. Goebbels and Adolf Hitler had seen some of the works of the famous director Fritz Lang, and they had a job offer. That Lang would be in charge of Nazi propaganda films, effective immediately. Lang graciously thanked Goebbels for the position. He left Germany that night and he never returned. Many talented filmmakers and technicians left Europe. Some of the notable persons are Hedy Lammers, Fritz Lang, Max Steiner, Billy Wilder, and Peter Lorre. So, censorship in Italy. With the consolidation of the fascist dictatorship, Mussolini created office of the Under-Secretary of State for the Press and Propaganda, then changed as Ministry of Popular Culture. So, film censorship mainly touched European and Italian films, which were especially subjected to preventative controls on scripts. The censors could, in effect, intervene in every stage of production, from the writing of script to editing. Emerging filmmakers like Antonioni, De Santis, Latuda, and Visconti had various projects rejected, especially those too firmly rooted in the news events of the time. Coming back to Indian scenario, in 1940s, Indian filmmakers have reflected the Second World War in their films. Indian fiction film directors were finding ways to talk about the ongoing freedom struggle without mentioning it directly. Dur Hato O Duniya Walo, the hit musical number from Kismet 1943, is ostensibly a warning to the Germans and the Japanese, but the actual target is clearly the British. In the 1940s, the policing of Indian cinema grew more stringent. Out of 1,774 films seen by the Bombay censor in 1943, 25 required modification before their release. This was also the decade that saw the disappearance of the kiss from Indian cinema. Crucially, this wasn't due to a change in censor rules, but because of a societal shift towards moral caution and Indian values. According to historian and film critic B.D. Garga's word, kissing disappeared from the Indian screen not because of a fiat of the censor, but because of pressures brought on by social and religious groups. It was a sign that film censorship in free India would depend not only on official sanction, but also on societal approval. So far, we have seen the historical backgrounds of censors, like how the censors came into existence, the Cinematograph Act 1918, the ICC 1927-28, censors in other countries like Germany and Italy, censors during the peak of our freedom struggle.